Daniella Simon Harrison here, and I'm doing a reflection on my last ITP that took place on Thursday the 20th of March. So Sir came to see me teach a unit on mastering persuasive writing, and I did it with my Form 5s. Alright, so initially I sent him 4 lessons in my unit plan, to which he responded with, I'm not seeing anything on audience. So I was like, audience. He sent me some documents, and I skimmed through them, and I saw how important audience really is in terms of directing the writer's purpose, and so the importance of audience in terms of audience awareness. If you know who you're writing to, you'll be able to change your style, have different markers of politeness, techniques, examples, in order to give the essay more direction, more appeal, more purpose, as I was saying. You can adjust your tone, your word choice in arguments, anticipate examples, and examples of rebuttals that the opposing side, would use, and be able to address them accordingly. Audience appeal clearly became lesson 3 in my 5-lesson unit plan. Now that I've shown the importance of the audience appeal in writing to my department, we cannot unsee our gap or mistake in unit plans prior. So some of the things that worked well were my psychomotor dance. So if you walk across here with me, I was able to create a dance for my students where they were able to use their hands for introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and the conclusion. So the psychomotor dance worked well in my recap for them to remember, where we're at. Also, that was for structure. Also, we collaborated. So the students and we collaborated together to write an essay. So on the board actually has some of my students' work, and they were able to use the outline that we created to collaborate with me on writing the essay. We also used the truth and dare game. So the truth and dare here, this box here worked really well. What they had to do, we only have 1 in here right now, but they had to give either truths that would be included in their essay and their body paragraphs. They were able to use this truth and dare game by selecting either truth. So in this case we have, give us 1 truth about using cell phones for constructive leisure time, which was the 3rd point or the 3rd reason that they came up with. It was an example for reason 3. And they were able to become less apprehensive by using this game. So I dare you to get a rebuttal for the opposing side, that kind of thing. And from that, they were able to flesh out their body paragraphs using the examples and techniques from the truth and dare game that they worked as groups on these same tables here, right, to create. All right, so 1 point stated in the truth and dare game was that cell phones were needed for emergencies. And of course this was excellent, but this was the perfect opportunity for role play. Now, according to Sir, this was the perfect opportunity for role play on such a hot afternoon, but we had already laughed our way through some scenarios in class before, in the class before the one Sir observed. This should have been an intentional strategy, but it was not. However, moving forward, I would definitely be more intentional in using this as a strategy, because role play could definitely help them to generate examples of scenarios for anecdotes that they can include in their body paragraphs, right? I had never used stop and dare techniques before. So here I have the stop. I had never actually used it before. Of course, I had employed the tree mnemonic. So if you walk across here, you would see that we have used the tree mnemonic before. Topic, sentence, the reason, examples, with the techniques, the endings, that kind of thing. However, I found that our dare techniques on this side was more effective. As I said before, we used the tree technique before, right? Talked about the magic of three, for the reasons, like the three little pegs, the three wishes in Aladdin that the genie would grant, that kind of thing. However, I felt as though the stop and dare were more focused, more strategic, and almost foolproof for my students in my school context.
The dare mnemonic.
They were able to use these mnemonics to form, mental checklists in their exams. They could use the dare mnemonic to form mental checklists for their exams. I provided them with a physical checklist using the stop and dare mnemonic. However, in the exam they will have to do it mentally, as I said. So some of the questions I generated for the lesson was S for stop. Did I suspend judgment after weighing the two sides? T, did I take a side or stance for which I had more support or more knowledge of? Did I use words like should or should not to describe whether, to show that I had taken a for or against, a disagreement or agreement stance, that kind of thing, right? For the dare mnemonic, I found it particularly helpful in crafting the body paragraphs as it was more detailed than the tree strategy, like I said, right? So for the D, where you had to develop the topic sentences, what I did was I created a formula. So they had to use a transition word. Let's say the transition word was firstly, they would have their transition word, comma, and they would have to put whether it was reason 1, reason 2, or reason 3. So let's say they were writing firstly, and over here I have cell phones can significantly enhance academic research. The formula was transition word plus reason 1 for academic research, and we collaborated to create a sentence that made sense and gave the entire paragraph some direction. Alright, so that worked particularly well for me with the dare mnemonic, where the D was concerned. For A, where we had to add supporting details and techniques, we were able to use the game, as I showed you before, and I even employed the Marshall Montano song, that song? Well, inserted here. Could only drive one car at a time.
We drive one car at a time, but I still want to, but I still want to.
But I still want to. So that way they would remember that they had to write 2 techniques. Now, students were singing along and stuff, but Sir was sure to mention that, I had to be careful to not just get a catalog of persuasive devices. You want to make sure that the techniques that you have, that students understand how to weave them into the paragraph, and that you could use 2 examples of the same technique, to create a certain type of effect. So you could use 2 rhetorical questions in one body paragraph. If you wanted to, let's say, appeal to or evoke the emotion from the audience of pity or of guilt or something, to appeal to get an emotional response from them, right? The audience that you're appealing to, that is. Alright, so it is important to ask for assistance from other teachers. Other teachers nodding in agreement here, okay? So as I was saying, it's important to ask for assistance from other teachers and do, more extensive research on material you use as an educator. Don't be like me and accidentally present a clear analogy as a metaphor example. So I use removing this responsibility from homes would be like asking the moon to teach the sun how to shine, an unnatural fit, as one of my examples. And I saw the moon and sun and automatically saw this as being incongruous with the school administration and students. Therefore, I explained that the moon was a metaphor for the school and the sun one for students. Thankfully, I didn't spend too much time commenting on that idea, but you never know what can stick with students when you're teaching, so you just want to be careful. Remember that you are the point of knowledge, so be careful. Another point I had to note from Sir's advice was the use of an international context. You know, that might be too difficult for students when it comes to generating examples and statistics, etc. So you want to stick to stuff like local telecommunication companies like Digicel and Ministry. If you take a walk with me to the board here, you'll see that we were using globally, words like globally, and we were talking about the modern world, you know, interior part. Y'all seeing anything else with global stuff? So when it came to the mobile internet examples, we had to use international telecommunications union. Now students would not have known what this was, right? However, using Digicel, B-Mobile, that kind of thing, TSTT would have been much easier for them. And when it came to courts, etc., using the Ministry of Education or the Minister of Education would be better options for students to generate ideas for their body paragraphs. They cannot write on what they do not know about. All right? So getting quotes like that, statistics like that would be more relatable and relevant when modeling techniques and examples. All in all, though the importance of audience, the psychomotor activity, the little dance, the collaborative essay writing, the topic sentence formula, right, firstly, and your reason, right, as well as the game, the truth in their game, the use of the dear mnemonic, that included the R for rebuttals, the tree doesn't have that like I mentioned before. All of these things were vital in terms of helping me to create a unit plan and lesson that was helpful to the students, and noting my two mistakes, the blatant ones that is, of including international examples as well as making the mistake with the anecdote. I think that all in all was a great lesson that could definitely be expounded upon, and the next step would be to have my department actually use these strategies, and well, they're already taking the audience appeal into consideration, so that we can better aid the students in our school context.